You want to see it? It's okay. I didn't think it.
My name is John Taves, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are, of course, all gathered here in Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Innuit, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, the homeland of the Red River Métis. In addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Brewster Dam. It's always such a pleasure to host these events here in the store, but it's a particular pleasure when we're celebrating a debut novelist. It's always a particular energy to them. So thank you all for being here tonight as we celebrate the launch of Venue 13, a novel in 5 acts by David Jón Fuller. I will get off the stage very quickly so we can get to the main event, but I just have a few quick procedural notes for you, which I realize are always the most thrilling part of any book launch. First of all, we'd like to begin by most heartily thanking Ravenstone and Imprint of Turnstone Press for publishing this book and for making this evening a possibility. We're also grateful to all of you for joining us. While it seems odd to apologize on behalf of a celestial body, you will all be equally tormented by the sun, which will slowly make its way across, but rest assured it will eventually lead you in its wake, and you'll be able to return to coverage. So thank you very much for your indulgence on that point. There'll be an introduction of tonight's featured author from up here by our host for the evening. That'll be followed by a reading, and then there'll be a conversation to my left. As time permits, I'll then circulate with this handheld microphone for questions, and following that, I'll briefly review signing procedure. You'll notice that all of your chairs have a card on them as well. This is basically inspiration for the inscription that you will receive in your book at the end of the event. So please do remember to bring these up. I appropriately have anxiously on my part. So if you bring those with you to the signing table, that will aid in the signing process. And I should also note that if you don't like the word that's on your card, please do feel free to chat among those around you. And you'll also have the opportunity when you get here with markers to write the spelling of your name on the card as well to ensure you can spend more time chatting than spelling when you get up. I now have the great pleasure of introducing tonight's host. Ariel Gordon is a Winnipeg, Treaty 1 territory-based writer, editor, and enthusiast. She is the author of 7 books, the most recent of which are the essay collection Fungal, Foraging in the Urban Forest, published by Woolsack and Wynne, and the hybrid graphic novel Bloodletters, co-authored with graphic novelist GMB Kmichek, published by Great Plains. Her most recent poetry chapbook, A Mudlarker's Diary, is sadly not available through us, although it is a beautiful object available directly from In Whole Poetry. So please seek that out if you are so inclined. Her work appeared in Best Canadian Essays 2025, edited by Emily Urquhart, and in Best Canadian Poetry 2026, edited by Mary Dalton. She was the 2025 to 26 writer in residence at the Winnipeg Public Library. She graces us with her presence this evening. Please join me in welcoming Ariel Gordon.
I am so happy to be here for the launch of David's book. Who here is so excited to be for David? Be here for the launch of David's book. You never get your first book launched back again. It is like a moment, it stays in your brain. And you can launch any number of books after that, but your first is memorable. And I, as a friend of David's, is going to do my best to ruin it for him. All right. So in preparation for hosting, I got David to send me his CV and PR hoo-ha, which is the technical term. And here's the first sentence I read. Once a fixture of Winnipeg's theater community, former actor David Jón Fuller draws from a life strutting and fretting on stages both local and abroad in his debut novel, Venue 13. Now, real estate agents describe fixtures as any object permanently attached to a property by way of bolts, screws, nail, glue, cement, or other means that a homeowner leaves behind when they sell a house. So that means things like ceiling fans, blinds, washers and dryers, and McNally Robinson is planning to leave John behind when they close the store. They're not gonna tell him they're just gonna lock up, he'll be here forever. But if I had to describe David, it would be as a built-in bookshelf. Because he has devoted most of his adult life to writing. Now, we both attended the University of Winnipeg in the 1990s, where I remember this guy whose big blonde afro bobbed as he loped down the English theater corridors, and who always had one of those Thor hammer necklaces on a leather thong around his neck. And who, put your hand up if you know him from this era. Oh, there's a few. Now, I didn't know him then, and if you didn't know him then, David was studying to be an actor, graduating with a BA honors in theater. He regularly appeared in fringe theater festival plays and other local productions in the 1990s, including a turn as the lead in Shakespeare's Henry V for the Winnipeg Shakespeare Company in 1993. Now, he made his professional acting debut in Theatre Project Manitoba's Short Shots in 1998, performing work by Ian Ross and Laurie Block, both of whom have left us, among others. Aside from his work in English, he also performed in Icelandic over the 2 years when he lived and studied the Icelandic language, literature, and history in Iceland, including 2 plays, an annual collection of comedic skits, staged at some Icelandic name I can't pronounce.
Háskóla Bio.
Do that again?
Háskóla Bio.
That. One of which was attended by then President of Iceland.
Ólafur Ragnar Grímsson.
And you're supposed to go now. Did you have a president attend anything you did? I don't think so. Now, we met in 2000 when I was invited to join his writing group, the Wolseley Writers Group. Yes. Oh. Oh. Oh no. I'm missing the second page. Oh no. Oh. I'm missing the second page. Hang it, I'm hanging it. So in our group, we met every 3 weeks for 5 years. And we were committed to telling each other the truth about our writing. We were committed to, I don't know, ripping into each other in the most loving ways. And at the time, David was working on 2 things, a sort of literary novel based on some of his time in Iceland, that opened with a scene as a short order cook in a restaurant, which was chaotic and awesome. I can't believe I remember that. It's 25 years ago. Anyways, and then the other thing he was working on was a goth vampires and headbanging werewolf story set in Winnipeg in the 1980s. And people wore Walkmans. And this was way before Twilight. So I'll just have you know that if he had gotten that book out sooner, he could be the new whoever it was that wrote Twilight. But then we wouldn't be here tonight being blinded by the sun. Back row, I'm looking at you. Yes. So we were such enormous dorks that we had a logo. Perry, stand up. That was the t-shirt we had. We had a logo which we deployed in a website, a chapbook called 10 Best Pages, and t-shirts, which we all wore at the launch, enormous dorks.
That looked good.
Yeah. And so, yeah. So, and in that time, David started a career doing all kinds of things for Blizzard Publishing in their theater imprint. So he was transitioning out of acting and moving into sort of writing and publishing, first in theater and then in other ways. And he worked for the Icelandic newspaper of note.
Ludvig Heimskringla.
That. Did that for many years. And then he started copy editing for the Free Press, freelancing and copy editing. And, you know, that was a big, long change. All of the things that he had done, that's a full life. He had family, he has a dog, he's got this job which makes him go to the newspaper very early in the morning. So if you get the early email from the Free Press, usually David's involved with that.
Yeah, it's my fault, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah. I skipped that page, was so good, you'll never hear it. You'll never know how good it was.
That was good.
He's also published a million things in articles for Prairie Books Now, in the Free Press. He's published all kinds of short stories in markets across North America. But this is his first book. And, you know, I'm so glad that he arrived here. You know, because you do something, you put in 25 years, and you have a good and full life, but you have that dream, the thing you want to get done in your life, the thing that's important to you. And it doesn't matter if you don't do it, because doing it is the important thing, right? Like the end goal is nice. It's nice to have a book with your name on it. Look at this book with his name on it. But the process and finding out who you are by doing it is the most important. But I have now the last page of my speech, so I'm going to do that. So in 2013 and 2014, the American Copy Editing Society awarded David prizes for headlines that he wrote in the Free Press. So here is a headline for you. Man publishes long-awaited first book. Yeah. And here's me telling David the truth. I'm proud of you, of all the work you've done over the years, that based on all that work, you've arrived here at McNally Robinson launching your book. I'm also happy that I published a book first. So please welcome David Jón Fuller.
Thanks for rooting that for me, Ariel. Not this, thank you. Thank you all for coming. Venue 13 is a novel about an actor who buys a theater. And his dream is to host bring your own venue shows in his city's annual summer theater festival. Aside from mounting debt and repair problems, what he doesn't know is the building is also haunted. I wrote the novel with stage directions, so you hear that as I read. And in the selection I'm going to read tonight, Robert, our main character, makes a fateful error. See if you can tell when that is. Venue 13, Act 1, Scene 1. Lights come up on a theater space on the top floor of a 3-story building built in the early 20th century. We hear sounds of hammering underneath the stage. From an open section along the proscenium, enter Robert, crawling out, wearing a light on his forehead and clutching a hammer. Robert Laliberte was no handyman, which would make eliminating the squeak in the floorboard downstage left the victory all the greater. If I could just nail this, he thought, clambering out from under the stage, I'll be set. He chuckled to the empty seats, most of them arranged in rows, but some loosely out of place. That, my friends, is production humor. He didn't care there was no one to answer him. Just working in his theater was enough of a rush. His theater. 3.5 months since he'd signed the papers for the old 3-story Brotherhood of Carpenters building in March, and it still puffed him up with pride. It was now July 3rd, and everything was coming into shape to give the forgotten 3rd-floor theater new life. Robert batted ancient dust from the knees of his jeans and strode quickly to the stairs stage left. He was merely the latest to do so. These stairs had been used in decades past by community groups, veterans organizations, and secret societies to welcome a select few up to receive awards, say some words of thanks, or, he mused, sacrifice a live chicken. What did he care? The place was his now, and the old boards could stand new trotting. Treading? Treads? What would the Shakespearean idiom be? His long lanky stride got him to the stairs in short order, and he took the steps up 2 at a time. Once on stage, he stopped and listened. The theater was silent, but for sporadic muffled noises echoing up from the first floor through the ventilation grates. They allowed warmth to rise through the old building when the radiators weren't in use. After he was done checking the floorboard, he'd open the fire escape door at the other end of the room to let some of the stuffiness out. July in Winnipeg could be humid, sweltering, full of mosquitoes, or smoky from forest fires far to the north. This was a rare, merely humid day. Robert doffed his forehead lamp and wiped the sweat from his lightly tanned brow with the sleeve of his dark blue shirt. Any breeze would be a relief. Better finish up here before I melt. He took a step carefully toward the offending board. Nothing. Maybe I'm not on top of it yet. He took another step, then another. He stood in place, bouncing lightly on one foot. A smile crept across his face as he flushed with pride. And so, ladies and gentlemen, despite the adage, sometimes to a man with a hammer, the only solution does actually look like a enter Ihor, a chef from the hallway. Berto, what the hell? Exclaimed Ihor, Robert's longtime friend, as he burst into the theater. He brandished a ladle that had likely spattered chili along the 3-flight ascension from the restaurant on the first floor. Ihor was shorter than Robert, had been since high school, and Robert's genes decided he needed an extra 5 inches vertically without expanding him much in width. When he was cast as the lead in a production of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, he was dubbed Ikarob by most of his classmates. Except for Ihor, who started calling him Berto. Ihor, meanwhile, had had to live down a lifetime of Winnie the Pooh jokes because his name sounded exactly like Eeyore. Unlike the pessimistic donkey of note, however, Ihor, at 5'9", was a bundle of taut, frenetic energy, always focused on the next thing like a sprinter chasing his personal best. His skin tanned easily, unlike Robert's, and his hair in thin, carefully groomed goatee were black. Robert ran a hand through his spiky, dirty blonde hair victoriously. I think I fixed it, he exclaimed, entirely ignoring the hell portion of Ihor's question. Great, that's great, agreed Ihor, frowning up at Robert as he approached, drumming his free hand along the lip of the stage. But do you know what time it is? Robert squinted at his watch, also covered in dust. Nobody's rehearsing until 2. I've got 15 minutes. Ihor's eyebrows looked like they were going to shrug right off his face and onto his chef's cap. It's lunchtime, he said, gesturing with both arms towards the theater doors and, Robert graphed, metonymically including 3 flights of stairs and Ihor's main floor restaurant, Hervé Shevchenko's. It was a Mexican-Ukrainian fusion bistro that predated Robert's purchase of the building. Robert coughed. Ihor's food was fantastic. I already ate, but thanks, he said. Crestfallen and his friend hadn't noticed the silent stage. Ihor wiped a calmer expression onto his face with one hand. You know what's not on the lunch special today? Robert bowed apologetically. Hey man, I love it all, but I haven't memorized this week yet. I do tell the actors and directors though to check it out. Ihor grimaced theatrically. Robert knew him well enough to realize he wasn't really angry yet. Before Robert could form a preemptive apology, Ihor slapped the stage emphatically. The sound of hammering. And yet, that's what everyone tucking into their borscht taco salad and pierogitos is getting, Berto. Robert knew Ihor at 33 was keen to make his only opened last year business succeed, and his signature pierogi burrito dish might not be enough to distract diners from the random din of Robert's handiwork. He glanced at the hammer in his hand. Sorry. Ihor gave him an exaggerated side eye. Like, could it not wait until the split on my server shifts? You know how it goes. Robert, 33 himself, and thus an old-timer in the service industry, certainly did. I get it. It won't happen again. He brightened. But hey, listen to this. He bounced again on one foot, forcing his weight on the tongue-and-groove floorboards that had supported generations of poor players strutting and fretting. Ihor cocked his head, his annoyance fading. Is this effect audible only to dogs and bats? The squeak, exclaimed Robert, pointing to the stage floor. The squeak, or rather, the squeak. Ihor put his hands to his temples, nearly swatting himself with a ladle, and half closed his eyes. I'm sensing something about a squeak. His eyes snapped open. So? Robert couldn't believe Eeyore didn't get it. This goddamn floorboard ruined my entrance and probably saved my life at my first Skeeter Fest show. Remember? Eeyore shrugged. Sorry, no, but I'll take your word for it. Robert thumped his heels down on the stage and crossed his long arms. I thought you were there that night. Eeyore turned to the doors. I was there. I just don't recall your near-death experience, he said. But can you knock off the hammering for the next half hour at least? I'm all done, said Robert with an apologetic nod. Hey, was I not right about the foot traffic? Eeyore paused, half turning back to him. I'd say orders are up a bit. This was a point of collaboration between them, and Robert hoped it wouldn't become one of contention. Eeyore had gotten wind of the building going up for sale, with the inside skinny that the owner was looking to sell quickly. Robert had just come off a bad breakup, had no acting gigs lined up, and in the winter of his discontent, was keen to throw himself into something new. And here was this place. He had loved it since his university days. Eeyore knew that, and he didn't want to have to close his bistro and find new digs as he established himself in Winnipeg's crowded restaurant market. So, as Robert took a walk through the three-story building, restaurant on the main floor, half-finished reno on the second that was good mostly for storage space, and the vintage, some might say heritage, others might say scrubby, theater space on the third floor, Eeyore had offered Robert a deal. He'd front Robert the down payment rather than investing in much-needed new kitchen appliances. Robert would own the building and pay him back. Eeyore would continue renting, now from Robert. And Robert's dream of opening up the theater space to companies in the huge annual summer theater festival, a.k.a. Skeeter Fest, because Winnipeg never met a self-deprecating joke it didn't like, would bring in customers for the restaurant. Everyone heading up to the theater had to pass through the main floor lobby and the attractively retro entrance to Hervé Shevchenko's. The identity of Eeyore's fictional avatar scandalized his parents, but they had to admit his halupchi were as good as Baba's. And the sense of delicious food and cheap drink specials were enough to draw even the most penny-pinching actors in. Robert grinned. It's going to be even better in 12 days. He put a hand out to delay Eeyore from racing back to his customers. Think of it. The actors, directors, stage managers all know about your place now. That's your word of mouth. And when the show's open, there'll be hundreds of people coming through here every single day. And not just audiences getting to see a show at affordable Skeeter Fest prices. Oh no. Robert permitted himself a dramatic lunge as he towered above Eeyore. Return customers, reviewers, the media. Robert straightened and threw his hands up, nearly losing his grip on the hammer. Think of it. Eeyore clicked his tongue and pointed a finger gun at Robert. I am thinking of it. In fact, I'm counting on it. I'm trusting you on this, Berto. It has to work. Robert took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the scent of dust and oiled wood and old electric lights. A musty, familiar, warm smell. Oh, it'll work. It's going to be amazing. Eeyore cocked a crooked smile. I hope so, but no more banging, okay? All done, promise. Thank you, called Eeyore over his shoulder as he made for the door. No problem, replied Robert. I think that duck goes more to your kitchen than the restaurant. Maybe not many people heard. Eeyore threw up a polite but disbelieving wave as he shoved the door open with his other elbow. Exit Eeyore. I think I'll leave it there for tonight. Now comes the torture, right?
Torture, the Inquisition. So. Just wait, the technical.
Good to go.
It's good. Deep breaths.
Actor training.
Actor training. Those two things established, we can go forward. All right, in a recent promo thingy for Turnstone Press, you said, I think it's very much part of the Icelandic storytelling tradition to include a ghost, either literal or metaphorical, in a work of fiction. So can you unpack that a little bit for me, please, David?
Yes, Ariel, I can unpack that for you.
Oh,
That was the worst wine we've ever seen, I'm sorry. The short version is that, one thing I was really struck by in Icelandic folklore, I had been expecting there to be lots of stories about trolls, and there are, but there are way more about ghosts. And a lot of them are quite creepy, and going back, depending how many centuries you're reading stuff in the sagas, the ghosts there aren't like just spirits, they're like half dead corpses walking around and stuff. It's really weird, and it shows up in just about every century of, I think, Icelandic literature. And that wasn't something I consciously thought of when I was writing this, but the more I wrote about it, the more I thought like, yeah, no, what? Maybe this is coming from somewhere.
And you've been writing sort of speculative fiction and fantasy for a long time.
Yeah. It's partly because it's so true, but yeah, and certainly, and the thing is, you may think consciously, I'm drawing from this, but quite a lot of the time you're just writing and you look at it and it's like, oh, that's where that's coming from.
Were there any other aspects of Icelandic literature that you deliberately or obliviously brought into Venue 13? Because sometimes you don't know you're doing something. Like, I think people sometimes think, oh, people are choosing all the things that they do in their works, and then someone says, oh, it's very clearly this, and you're like, oh yes, that was on purpose.
I'm gonna say that, yes, it was all on purpose. Thanks for setting it up, so I don't have to admit that I did things by accident. No, I mean, part of it wasn't conscious necessarily, but it certainly infuses it, because this is obviously a novel inspired by the Winnipeg Fringe Festival and other Fringe festivals. But it's not just the specific event, it's that for a brief time every summer, Winnipeg just suddenly gets theater. I mean, there's stuff all winter and whatnot, but like everybody in all markets where is saying, have you seen this? You should go see that. This one's really good. This one's not worth your time. And that's kind of what it is like all the time. At least it was when I lived in Iceland. Everybody knew what was on stage at the National Theatre, at this tiny theatre, at the high school, at the university. Everybody knew what was going on. It was in the paper. It was, you know, it was just a part of the fabric of life. People had their favorite stage actors. That was partly because actors are showing up on stage, TV, movies, so it's the same faces. But that was very unlike what you might see in Canada, where, you know, people go to plays, but it's not quite the same daily thing. But this novel is infused with that importance, in my opinion.
Yeah, that primacy and the preparing for the onslaught of the theater lovers.
Yeah.
My favorite bit of your CV is that when you were living in Iceland for those 2 years, attempting to learn the language, you joined that theater troupe and performed plays in Icelandic. But the thing that kills me, or that I love, is that, like Nana Muscuri, he memorized lines phonetically because his language skills were not up to snuff. So was it harder to recite memorized bits of a language you didn't speak, but imbuing them with all the necessary information and emotion, while also walking your body through the blocking? Like, that's 3 tasks. And I know you're not good at very many tasks. Just one. So 3.
Yes. It was super hard, and it was actually really instructive, actually, because I had just come from, you know, finishing a degree in theater and doing, you know, various shows in the Fringe and whatnot, and stuff that I thought was hard, like doing Shakespeare over the years. Like, that's hard to do, but it's still English, and my language was like a certain. I could barely read picture books in Icelandic, and then we were trying to do scenes from Chekhov, and a monologue that I probably could have memorized in a weekend took me 3 weeks, and I was working at it so hard. Like, I read the translation, and then you learn great phrasing when you have to memorize stuff in another language. You're like, oh, this is a beautiful turn of phrase, and then you start using it, and your friend said, you talk like a book. But
You act like Nana Muscuri, talk like a book. I mean, she's an international superstar. I mean,
I'm gonna take the compliment, so yes,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm like Nana Muscuri, absolutely. But yeah, it was hard and it was instructive, but it also was really, you can't just give a line reading when you don't know what the line is. You have to really think about theatrically what's going on in the scene. So yeah, it was very instructive and humiliating.
So I have another theater question, then we're gonna get to book process, but there were so many little like nuggets, good nuggets in your CV. I had to pluck them out.
That's because I'm so interesting. You told them that I was.
Ever. So in 1999, you appeared on the front cover of the Winnipeg Fringe Theatre Festival program,
Yep.
wearing Keanu Reeves's costume from the 1995 production of Shakespeare's Hamlet.
Secondhand fame all
Yeah.
over.
So the image had you thusly attired, standing in place of the golden boy on the top of the ledge. So what was it like being a stand-in simultaneously for both Keanu and the golden boy?
I was a stand-in for Hamlet. Keanu also played him in a noteworthy local production, but I was Hamlet. It was great because I was world famous all over Winnipeg. I mean, I'll take it.
I mean, there's no famous like Winnipeg famous. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah.
Now, do you still have the pose that they made you do? Like, is it in you? Could you do it? Could you step down from the chair and do it right now? With the book in hand? Oh my God. That's the best thing I've ever seen, besides Harry in his almost too small t-shirt.
I often feel like John Nevis from Saturday Night Live when he played the Master Thespian. Remember that character? Of course, I was.
Whacked the tree.
You know,
All right. In
I'm whacking the scenery. I'm not chewing it.
Oh.
Yeah, that didn't land at all.
Yeah.
Yes.
In 1993, you performed at the former Masonic Temple / Mother Tucker's restaurant building on Donald, which I understand is the inspiration for your theater.
Yep.
Did it seem haunted to you then? Were there any spooky incidents?
No, but there was one, well, I heard the rumors that it was haunted, and it was definitely the inspiration for the way I envisioned Venue 13. And this is a secondhand memory because I wasn't there at the rehearsal where this happened, but I wish I had been because various members of the cast were sitting in the front row of the rehearsal theater and were saying, "Do you think this place is haunted?" "Oh yeah, I hear they used to sacrifice people." There's like all kinds of awful, visceral things that were maybe true, probably not. And one of the actors was off to the side, and you could get onto the stage by going into the hallway and coming back out and then walking into the wings. And he did this quietly. And there was a chair just off the wings on stage with a shirt on. And he crept up there and he waited until conversation died. And then he put his hand in the sleeve and he went like this and went. And apparently one of the actors just shrieked. And then he came and was like, "Oh no, it's just me." But that was the most haunted I ever saw.
And you weren't even there. This is a secondhand.
I know, but I can say I wished I had been there.
Yeah.
I could absolutely imagine Rob doing that.
Now, did you revisit the building when you started working on the project?
Well, I wanted to, but it's been closed for a long time now. And as far as I understand, it has also been kind of hollowed out.
Art City had a fundraiser there 2 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah. So
You
was
actually-
there.
Oh, wow.
Sue Sorensen was there.
Oh, I wish I'd known because I would have gone. But I did want to go, but every time I go by there on my bike, it's got
The barricade.
yeah, barricades.
Because I hear it's for sale.
Hey,
And creative writing instructors mutter about form following content, but this would be life imitating art. I mean, if you bought it, Ron, is it okay if he buys the theater and revives his theater?
as everybody who's going to read this novel will find out what a terrible idea that would be. Maybe I'll do it.
Also, Andrew Davidson has done that with the Gargoyle Theater, which
Yeah.
was the former Cinema 3. And if you, I mean, he should be suing you already. Is he suing you?
I can neither confirm or deny. So, he's also Icelandic, so maybe it's okay.
Maybe.
I'll pull the Icelandic card and say, "Hey man, don't come after me." I actually wrote the first draft of this before I knew he'd done that. And after I realized it, it's like, oh no, what do people think? It's like, you know what? This is so much more based on the actual Venue 8. I think the more you read it, it should be pretty obvious.
All right. So nowadays you work as a copy editor and a freelance writer for the Free Press. And what's it been like working both sides of that fence? I mean, your performances as an actor were reviewed, panned by the Winnipeg Free Press writers.
Yeah.
And you've written Fringe Festival play reviews as recently as 2024.
Yes, it's good to be on both sides, and it's, instructive. It's very hard as the performer to read a bad review, just like I'm sure it is for a writer to read a bad review, but they're never for the artist, they're for the readers, they're for the audience, right? And when we got a bad review when you're at the Fringe, I read it, it's like, you feel kind of the winds out of your sails. But I thought, you know what, like, this guy did not like our show. It's not going to stop him from reviewing. So a bad review isn't going to stop me from getting up there and putting on the show, because that's the job. And when you're doing that, I find that you've got to be fair, and you got to say that here's something doing well. Here's what you'll find as the audience. You'll enjoy this if you like that. But if it's a real stinker, you're also going to say that too. And nobody likes to hear it, but like.
Yeah, but everybody has to start somewhere. I mean, if you're brilliant right from the hop, I mean, that's hateful,
Yes.
but also unlikely, right? Very few people write a very excellent first play their first time. They write kind of an okay play and they take it to the Fringe and they get the reviews and the audiences they kind of deserve, but they get encouragement, right?
Yeah.
To keep going. All right, now tell me about working with legendary supernatural thriller / horror writer and editor Susie Maloney. And I want to know what kind of questions she asked you during the editing process and if she pushed you. I want to know how she pushed you.
Yes, she did, and it was great. Susie is a great editor, and I also think a great writer. We went much deeper into all the aspects of the story that I was happy with, and that Turnstone had said, let's go forward with this. But she said, okay, we got to go deeper into this character, and why is he doing this, and what's really driving him here, and this is okay, but it doesn't have a lot of carry forward momentum. So we looked at how the scenes could, increase in tension, how we could make the problems worse and worse instead of just being sort of scattered. Excuse me, and also it really helped me go deeper into everybody's backstories. Everybody had a backstory for the scene that they were in, but after doing all that work and then approaching it again, I could really feel how the characters were interacting as people, not just what I needed them to do, if that makes sense. That sounds a bit precious, I guess. People talk about characters taking a life of their own, but when you give them more depth, then they do that and they can surprise you.
Well, and this definitely has a comedic tone, despite, the hauntings and the stakes, but there's definitely like, you are reaching for humor.
Reaching. You're almost there. I mean, you get there in the next one.
No, but it
Thanks,
says,
Ariel.
it says in the book description that is comedic. So were you surprised in writing something funny that you had to do all the same like underpinnings and backstories and
No.
deepening?
No, because the best, well, not best, but they can have all different kinds of comedy. Things can be absurd, things can be slapsticks, things can be, character driven, banter, all that stuff. But I think no matter what genre of comedy you're thinking of, if you really look at what's going on in it, whether it's like, say, a Monty Python thing or a stand-up routine or like a Bugs Bunny cartoon, every character's got some deep motivation that's driving them. Like Daffy Duck is supremely driven. And that's why it's so funny when things blow up in his face. Or, the absurd things in a sketch comedy group, like the Frantics, who I don't know if everyone remembers, but like Mr. Canoe Head. Like, there's the absurdity of things. And then there's like the people in those scenes care so deeply. That's part of what makes it funny.
Did you have any poltergeisty works that had come before that you were drawing on? Like my daughter and I are watching Buffy right now, and we are discussing how each franchise of vampires has different lore. Like the vampires can do this over here, but they can't in this person's book. They can't do that thing, right? Like
that's a really good question. In fact, that's another thing that I'll point back to Susie for her guidance in editing, because I had an idea of how things worked supernaturally in this, and I was writing that way. I had kind of gone to the end of a very finished draft where I realized like, I have to explain something a little differently because it doesn't quite line up. And she said, you got to figure out the rules of the monster, how things work. And she didn't say write them and tell them to the audience. You just have to know. So that all your scenes make sense and people who are paying attention can like, oh, this is how that works. Oh, they can do this, but not that. And once we had hammered that out, it was a lot easier to figure out what could happen in the scenes. And then you can really increase the drama because the reader starts cluing in. It's like, oh wait, that does this and this leads to that. So yeah, you make up your own lore. And there were some things, like I wasn't saying, oh, we're gonna do ghosts this way, but we did look at, you know, what would be the rules for how this would work and what are the interesting dramatic implications for those rules?
So you can't think of a single work that you referred to during this process.
Well. Scooby-Doo, yeah, well, no, that's always a man in a mask, so no.
Those damn kids.
Meddling kids,
Yeah, oh, and meddling kids.
what Scooby-Doo were you watching?
I hate Scooby-Doo. It's my least favorite show. My partner and child watch it and they were like, look, come watch Scooby-Doo. I'm like, that's the worst show in the world.
It's genius, and they never dropped the D-bomb in any of them, I gotta tell you that.
It's not a bomb.
Those kids, those infernal kids, they never said that. Shows how much you need to watch more Scooby-Doo.
So you've been writing books since your university days. Tell me about the road from there to here. Your first book in your hands and a room full of readers and writers, friends and family.
Well, I want to thank everybody for their patience in listening to me read from those unpublished books over the years, which you have, including the first one, which I wrote in a weekend, thanks to the 3-day novel writing contest. And oh my God, yeah, and then spent years revising it, and then put it in a trunk forever. That's okay though. I don't know, I mean, one of the things that Susie said, which I believe is true, is that every book you write makes you a better writer. And part of that is going through the editorial process. You can't, I don't think you just write a first draft, put it down and you get better. You get better because people give you feedback or you get response or you work with an editor. And whether it's published or not, the whole process is taking your mind through something in terms of storytelling, character, how do I like to write, what's my voice, all that stuff. So I don't know if there's a linear path, but for me, it's been one of, I would say, flexible perseverance. And, you know, if something isn't moving forward with a novel manuscript, I put out or submit short stories, work on things like that. It's always working with words and, you know, they're different and it's good. And now I'm a poet. As in case you didn't know, Ariel hates that I mentioned this, but I am a poet now because I have a poem that was published in the Free Press.
It was my fault. I picked it. Me and Melanie.
No, you actually said you didn't.
I said I was in conflict of interest and Melanie actually selected it.
I have a hat that says poems and I wear it to annoy Ariel because now I'm multimodal.
Not what Bronwyn says.
You don't know that. But Ron also didn't like the poems that.
So one of the things that people, when they're publishing their first book, do is they forget to thank everyone.
Yeah.
So is there anyone you want to thank before my last question?
Everybody for ever reading anything I've ever written.
Any particular people like Turnstone Press and your partner and?
Yes, but you know what? That's why I was really careful to put it in writing and it's all here in the acknowledgements. And yes, I do want to thank my wife Bronwyn for supporting me all these years in my quest to write books. And I do want to thank Sharon and James and Chelsea and everybody at Turnstone for helping make a dream of a first novel come true. It's a big deal. And thanks to everybody who has read versions of this, friends Angelique and Sarah, who were my critique partners and really helped me develop it over the years. And actually, I should thank, and I can't by name, but every single director or actor, stage manager, acting prof, acting teacher I ever worked with, because they really pull so much out of you creatively and push you to do more. And I really couldn't have written a novel like this without that experience, all those experiences. So I want to thank them too.
All right, my last question, and then we're going to see what probing and insightful questions you have is what's next for you? Put another way, what are you working on now?
Okay, well, I can answer that two ways. Some short stories that are coming out in some anthologies this year, next year, a few. I'm working on more short stories right now just to kind of get my head out of long form things because it's good to change it up. And what's literally happening next, I'm going to be doing events in Ottawa at Perfect Books on June 16th and in Barrie, Ontario at Chapters on June 20th and back to Winnipeg for Wild and Wonderful Words on July 8th with curated by Sheldon Burney at Socrams. So I'm looking forward to those. And I'm also going to be in Canada Fiction Fest, which is an online thing with hundreds of Canadian authors, all Canadian. And I encourage everyone to look up that because they've got authors from all across Canada taking part.
Cool. And are any of the manuscripts in that trunk going to be making an appearance in the next couple of years?
The one that's definitely in the trunk is definitely not coming out of the trunk, but
I'll be a poltergeist and I'll come and get it out of the trunk and throw it at you.
no. It was one of the things that I found amazing and sort of hard to believe at first because I thought Mordecai Schroeder was such a fantastic writer and I was a huge fan of his work. Is he said at one point when people were asking about his earlier novels, what about that first one? So, oh yeah, The Acrobats. That was my very autobiographical first novel. It brought me attention and got my foot in the door, and I have skillfully managed to keep it out of publication ever since. I thought, yeah, I'm just going to keep some of them in the trunk. Yeah, maybe there's a home for some werewolves running around, and there's another one about Vina Terta. And
I've read that one, parts of it. You have to explain what a Vina Terta is for the non-Icelanders.
It's a prune torch, and if that doesn't make you think I shall try some, well, that's all. But it's a layered cookie with thin layers of prune
And cardamom.
preserves. You can put cardamom. It's controversial though.
And
Anyways, it's
icing on top.
also controversial.
I like icing. Are you
Yeah.
pro icing or
I
anti-icing?
like the icing, but it means that my dog will try and eat it. I made a Vina Terta once. This is getting off topic. It's nothing to do with theater. It took me 3 days because that's how long it takes to make them. He had never gone up on the counter for one of these things before, but I iced it with buttercream icing and then went out to pick up the girls from Guides. I came back and the dog was in the doghouse in the crate. And the Bronwyn said, "You might be wondering why Dash is in his crate." And so we looked at the Vina Terta, 3 days of effort. Nice big chunk taken out of it because he went for the butter and he just kept eating. So yeah, he was fine. And I cut away the dog's saliva. And
Yummy!
like, I'm gonna eat that part, but I'm gonna eat the rest because that was a lot of work. So yeah, after that, I did not let it remain uncovered. That's mine.
David Jón Fuller, folks. We have a wireless mic that needs to be deployed somewhere in the audience. Does anybody have a question? Go.
Oh,
I feel personally attacked that you don't believe in ghosts.
well, that's
I think
fine.
we've talked about this.
Yeah, I know.
And so why not?
I'll say this, I don't have any experiences that lead me to believe in ghosts, but I totally understand that other people have, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not saying they don't exist, I don't believe in them.
They're gonna get
They're gonna get, yeah, I know.
I think old age and ennui is going to get him. No
I'm
offense.
gonna faint at my ghosts.
Yeah. Anyone else? Come on. Even if the question is, why are you so good?
That's a great question.
Like kids, you can't say which, but do you have a favorite part of the book?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, I won't give away too much, but there's always, I shouldn't say always, but often there's a point at which everything is going wrong for the main character. It's sort of the all is lost moment. And as a reader, you're going like, oh my God, how are they getting out of this? And that's one thing that Susie helped me develop. It's like, there's gotta be a point in this book, and you can see from the opening scene how Robert kind of deals with people. He's got his own way. And she said, there's gotta be a point at which nobody is talking to him anymore because of what he's doing. And I said, yeah, how can we work that out? And it was a lot of fun to work up the circumstances that brought it to the nadir, I'm saying that right, the low point where, you know, he was either gonna have to give up or start working on it. And that scene was actually a lot of fun to write. Thanks.
My favorite scene is when Robert finally gets to perform on his own stage during Skeeter Fest.
Mhm.
But that, I'm not telling you anything else, because there's a big spoiler there. Anyone else for a question?
In your career as a fringe player and producer, I'm assuming,
But just actor, really.
oh, just actor,
Yeah.
okay, have you ever been involved in a bring your own venue production?
Yes.
And how did the venue compare to Venue 13?
Oh, very differently, but that's a good question, because the bring your own venue phenomenon, for people who don't know, it's like there's always a number of set venues that the Fringe Festival has that you get slot into if you make it into the Fringe. But sometimes if you still have a show and you can find some place to perform, you can still be in the festival. The first bring your own venue I ever saw was for a play called Eureka. I think it was 91 or 92. It was set in a grimy little parking garage in the Exchange. You could smell everything that was already there before you could sit down for your show. But it was a brilliant, great performance. And so many years later, I was in a show that was the bring your own venue called Tumbling Dice, written by Bob Hume. And he found the venue. It was a place where we could hook up enough sound. I was playing guitar in it, so we had good acoustics for those sorts of things. And it is a lot more work, but then you get to control how many shows you have and when they are. There's a plus to it. And the work is, you know, it is considerably more, because you've got to find your own sound people, your own light, all that stuff. So it doesn't really compare to having an existing theater, but the tenuous nature of, is everything going to work? Do these systems work? Who knows? Let's try. That's definitely there. Good questions, everyone. Thank you.
You're not a believer in ghosts. Do you believe in the sort of traditional theatrical superstitions? It seems like a field rich with superstition.
I love that question, because no, I don't either. And the reason I find that so funny is because I've tripped over that with people who are. And there's a real story that made it sort of fictionally into Venue 13. And if I'm not mistaken, there's one other person here tonight who remembers that, because I said Macbeth in a theater. And the bastard. Yes. And Maury, if I'm not mistaken, it was you and I who did it, and our director, Marion Bernstein, said, out of the theater, it was November, it was snowing, and she said, you have to walk around in a circle backwards 3 times saying Macbeth.
Around the theater?
Well, I think that was the original idea, but she said you can walk in a circle, because before you were allowed back into this building. I was like, yeah, sure, sis, I mean it. You know, like, okay, I guess we're doing it now. And so we did that, and I thought, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. However, I'm never gonna do that again. So yeah, I don't. I think
And then there's that, you can't wish someone good luck, you have to say break a leg.
break a leg or married. Yeah.
I always say to writers, because we're not as performative as actors, I always say twist an ankle. That's like halfway to you know, breaking a leg.
Yeah. Yeah. I still do that because I think it's fun. I think it's fun that actors say married to each other after, you know, before the show.
So there's no, they don't say, they only say it in French, they don't say poop.
I haven't heard it. I mean,
Okay.
you know, but anyway, yeah, these are weird things, but yeah.
So you don't believe in anything, no superstitions, no ghosts, just
Oh
the
my God, I
theater.
don't believe in anything. Holy crap. I just, there's a lot of things that I'm skeptical of, and I could be convinced if I see evidence of it. In fact, there was one, this is going off topic again, but it's about ghosts. I was asking an old farmer on a farm where I was working if he believed in ghosts, because he, you know, I'd come to realize that people took stories of the Hildefeld very seriously there. And I thought, like, is there something to this, or am I just missing it? And he was about to explain whether he believed in ghosts. And we were standing in a barn, and suddenly there was this huge bang from the wall next door. And we were both like, what was that? And so, of course, would go and look. And a horse had just walked into the other side without us noticing, totally quietly, and kicked the wall, just as we were talking about it. So, yeah, I thought, like, my tempting fate, I shouldn't go on more about this, but yeah.
All right, I think we have time for one more question before the grand signing parade starts.
Is there a future where we might see David Jón Fuller on stage again, and what would it take to get there?
$1 million. Maybe. I loved acting and I loved performing, and I'm glad you asked that because it was something that I enjoyed doing. For me, I think the reason I stepped back from the acting life was for me, it was a bit too chaotic to always be chasing the next gig. And so I moved to something more stable like publishing. But I do miss it sometimes, and as both my girls know, was they were growing up, if I needed to get a hold of them across the playground, actor voice comes on, and wait a second, just raise your voice and everybody hears you and everybody knows it's your dad. But I miss it, and I have fond memories of it. So I don't know, to do it again, I also feel very rusty, so I would have to be with people that aren't going to trust me with too much, and I can just come on and do my bit. Anyway, yeah.
You never know.
You never know.
Do you have any closing words of wisdom for us before I go over signing procedure?
Oh man, no pressure for me. I don't know. You know what? Read books by local authors. They are always writing about something different than you might expect. Read everything you want, but do pick up something local. It really matters. It really helps. And I'm so glad to see everybody here supporting a local author. And I hope that you come to the next event in McNally or your favorite local bookstore and support somebody who's sharing their stories with you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, Ariel. Thank you all for being here, for tolerating the sun, and for your insightful questions and general presence. Thanks again to Ravenstone and Imprint of Turnstone Press for making this evening a possibility and publishing this book. To remind you a little bit about the procedure for the evening, just remember to bring your card up to the table and be ready to write your name on it as well, so that the spelling is correct inside your book. I'm reminded of the immortal words of Nana Muscori in her song Long Day's Night, where she asks, who are these ghosts who haunt me yet? And if you'd like to know more about the ghosts that haunt Venue 13, please pick up a copy this evening. Have a wonderful night.